In screenwriting, criticism is called notes, which sounds nice, right? Like a little greeting card. A terrifying, devastating, confusing greeting card from hell. Okay, let me get this out there right up front because it is the most important thing I have to tell you about notes. If you don't own the project, you have to find a way to take the notes. If you do own the project, you have to choose which notes to take. So you're wondering, what does own the project mean? In screenwriting, if someone pays you to write, they own what you wrote. They own that project or that piece of writing. So they can take it away from you, they can have someone else make changes, they can just throw it away. But if you write something and someone says, hey, I might pay for it if you changed this, or I know what other people pay for and I tell you to change this, it's your script, you own it, and you have to think about how much you want to do what they say. When you're desperate to break in, it can feel like you have to do what anyone in the business says. Please remember, if they own the project, find a way to take the notes. If you own the project, you decide which notes to take. Now, I'm guessing that most people watching this video are not getting paid, so I'm going to talk about dealing with notes when you still own the project. And the first thing you have to think about then is, what is your goal in asking for notes? For example, a lot of people ask me to read their work to see if they should keep being a writer. Why on earth would you let anyone else decide if you're going to be a writer? A writer is a person who writes, and if you want to be a writer, write stuff and then you're a writer. Whether or not you make a living at it is a whole separate question. Be a writer if you want to be a writer and keep working on being a better writer. That is what every writer does, and you're already doing it. Keep doing it. Stop and figure out what you need from notes. Try to get specific. Does the plot make sense? Does the dialogue flow? Does it move too slow or too fast? Do you care about this character? Try not to go into notes asking, do you like it? Because there are people who don't like Shakespeare or Casablanca or, though this is hard to believe, Ted Lasso. Anything that anyone writes, there's going to be people who like it and don't like it for all kinds of different reasons. It's not a helpful note. Notes are opinions. When you show people your work, you're getting their opinions, which are based on their taste and their concerns. So I personally advise getting a lot of opinions, not just notes from one authority who's going to tell you what's right and wrong. Get a lot of people to say what they think of it, and then you sort it out for yourself. I think a writer should try to show their work to as many different people as they can, as often as they can. But do consider the agenda, values, and ability of the note giver. What is their goal in giving the note? What are their values? The power or position or talent of the critic does not mean you have to believe or do everything they say. They may just have a different agenda than you. It's an art. Even the most powerful and important people are still guessing. There is no surefire right answer. So the most important question that you can ask yourself about a note is, do they get your project? Are they giving you notes with the essential intent of changing your project into something else? Now, it is often worth considering what I would call an alternate universe note, a very valid but entirely different version of what you're trying to do. And if it feels like letting go of what you were trying to do is worthwhile, sure, try it. But know that that's what you are doing, that this note is not about making your work better in what it was doing. It's trying to make it something else. The problem is most people don't say, here's an alternative universe version of your idea. They say, you did it wrong, or it's going to fail. Look for people who embrace what your project is and give notes about making that better. Now, even when you get good notes, sometimes you can run into the problem of feeling, but I like it that way, which is both cringy and the core of being an artist. And it is really hard to know which one you're being. The important thing to remember is, making art is making choices. Everything is a choice, and every choice has a price. If you want it to be kind of boring, or so expensive only a few companies could produce it, you just have to be willing to pay the price for your choice. Now, does all this mean that notes have no value? It would be so easy if notes were always wrong. Unfortunately, some notes will instantly make sense to you. You will think, yeah, I knew that was a mistake, but it was the best I could do at the moment. Or you'll just think, holy crap, I didn't realize that, but of course that's true. Take those notes. But even if that magic doesn't happen, even if the notes are not quite right, or even dead wrong, they still can show you that there's something there you might need to think about. Especially if different people give a similar note. Even if they define it in different ways or think different things will solve it. That's a note you want to pay some attention to. And no matter what, good, bad, or indifferent, notes are a lot. It is hard to get notes. So, take a breath. No matter what you feel, exhilarated or devastated, take some time. Don't react or respond right away. Let yourself think about it. Let your mind work through it. Pay attention to how you always react. Because if you always say the same thing, it doesn't matter what it is, it could be no, I won't do it, or it could be yes, I have to do what they say. If you always say the same thing, no matter what the note is, then it's not about the note, and it's not about the work, it's about you and your feelings. And you got to pay attention to that. Think about what those feelings mean to you, what you're getting from them, why you have them, because they're clearly not actually about the notes or the script. This is where that take a breath thing comes in handy. Okay, but what if it's not one of those feelings and you actually just don't agree with what someone says in a note? Should you defend your work when getting notes? It depends. I mean, why are you debating their opinion? To convince them they're wrong? You probably won't. But even if you did, I thought the whole point of this was you wanted their opinion. My main advice on debating a note is say what you have to say once. If it convinces them, yay! If not, let it go. Also, watch out for defending your choices by citing rules or generalizations. Don't try to justify your work with some grand authority. Don't get into a debate on theory. If it's not working in this work for this reader, it doesn't matter how much you understand some rule. You also generally shouldn't defend your script by saying, it worked in that movie, or it's just like a scene in that movie. Not only is this not a valid defense, i.e. this apple must taste sweet because that one did, it's also a red flag that you may be carrying the inspiration of another work into your judgment of your own. It's only useful if someone says that type of thing can't work, and you need to show them that it can. Beware of defending something because it took a lot of work to get it. In fact, sometimes the huge difficult effort that it took to make something is actually a sign that the thing isn't working that well. There's no rule here, I'm just saying ask the question, am I clinging to this because it was so hard to make? Most of the time, a writer's main job when getting notes is taking them in, gathering them, writing them down, so that later you can translate notes into workable plans and questions. Almost always, you need to figure out how to make a note useful. That is work you often have to do by yourself. Most people who give you notes aren't going to be writers. Or if they are writers, they're often writers who can only think the way they do things. And that's okay. It's your job to turn their notes into a useful form for you. Try to Sort out the problems from the solutions. Even if you don't agree with their particular solution, the problem may be real. Think about what the note is talking about and approach it in your own way. In the industry, sometimes they call this looking for the note behind the note. For example, someone will say, oh, you didn't really have this in the script. And it's there. You can show them the words on the page where you wrote it, but it didn't have an impact. So the note you have to take there is, why did this thing that I wrote not have an impact on the reader? Maybe it's where it was placed or who said it or how they said it. That's the note behind the note it's missing. Translate negative responses into positive actions. Many teachers and readers and critics just focus on what they think is wrong, but as a writer, you need to turn those things into things you can do, things you can write to make it better. And sometimes at the end of the day, somebody's negative notes are just that person's feelings, and they're not that important, and they're just not going to work for you. You can't take every note. Some writers feel like they have to do anything that anyone says, and seriously, you can't. Ask yourself, is it consistent with the other choices in this script? Now and then you may rethink a basic choice and everything has to shift, but usually a note should not create a lot of new problems. Does it click? I know it sounds vague and woo-woo, but it's a real thing. Even if you are miserable about the work it will take or the loss it will require, a note should still make sense. It should feel like something is getting better. And the last thing I want to talk about regarding notes is accepting that they are part of the process. The one thing you learn as a professional is screenwriting requires endless changes. A key skill for professional screenwriters is the ability to work up a detailed, coherent, fully realized understanding of the story and characters, and then toss it out and rethink it entirely. You could look at that as cause for despair, because how can we make choices or have any sense of good and bad if everything can change? But if you look at it as a skill, like improv, getting used to saying, okay, that changed, what do we do with it? It can be incredibly liberating and empowering. And I, personally, vote for that one. All right, that's enough for now. Go write something. If you like this video and subscribe to this channel. Leave me comments, ask me questions in the comments section of this video, or go to writingforscreens.com. But it didn't make a difference. Wrong. For the people who, but too much. Now. No. Oh, because at the booba. Papa. Yeah. Okay.